What's up guys, and today I'll be reacting to one of Simple History's latest videos, the Sikh bayonet charge hero wipeout at Bumla Pass. Let's see what this is about.
Subadar Joginder Singh.
Oh, let me fix that real quick, it's playing in the corner. Here we go.
The Sikh bayonet charge at Bumla Pass, 1962. In October of 1962, during the Sino-Indian conflict, the Chinese People's Liberation Army deployed vast numbers of troops across the border between China and India, high up in the inhospitable Himalaya mountain range. This was in response to an ongoing dispute with India over territory. A fierce and bloody battle took place at Bumla Pass as the Indian Army attempted to counterattack and push back the invading forces. In the middle of this conflict was an Indian officer by the name of Joginder Singh. In 1921, he was born in a village in the Moga district of Punjab into an agricultural family. But because they were so poor, his parents could not afford to pay for his education. So in 1936, at the age of 15, he joined the Indian Army and became a career soldier. During World War II, his early military career saw him deployed to Burma, where he saw fierce combat against the Japanese as part of the Commonwealth Forces efforts in the region. After this, in 1947, the two newly independent states of Pakistan and India found themselves in a conflict of their own, aptly named the Indo-Pakistani conflict. Singh fought most of this war while located in the city of Srinagar. By 1962, this now experienced and highly respected soldier had risen to the rank of Subadar, which was a junior commissioned officer serving in the 1st Sikh Regiment, 7th Infantry Brigade. That same year, tensions between India and China over their border in the Himalayan mountain range began to grow. Singh's brigade was ordered to bolster Indian troop numbers in the military outposts in the strategically important Namka Chu Valley of the region. This was meant to be a show of force by the Indian government, though it came with a public outcry, with many fearing that it would put the brigade in an extremely vulnerable and poorly defendable position. The Indian Prime Minister brushed aside any concerns, however, believing the Chinese would not be willing to go to war over such a minor border dispute. It soon became evident that he had miscalculated the situation, though, as almost immediately the Chinese government reacted and did the exact opposite, ordering their troops to attack the Indian forces in the region. The Chinese reasoned that this was the best course of action in this situation, as a quick attack meant they could catch the Indians by surprise before they had any time to fully organize and mobilize the rest of their military resources. Short on ammo and totally unprepared for the incoming attack, the Indian frontline positions were swiftly overrun and captured by the Chinese soldiers. The Chinese, sensing a possible decisive victory to this long-running border dispute, did not want to stop at this small amount of captured territory and decided to push further on to Indian soil. Singh's own platoon consisted of just 20 lightly armed men who were based on the Bumla Pass, which lay 15,000 feet up in the mountains, making it extremely difficult to reach. The remote spot was, however, on the main footpath to the town of Tawang, where the administrative headquarters of the entire area was located. Singh knew that it was of the utmost importance that he held the position for as long as possible so that Indian reinforcements could be allowed to get through to Tawang. But this soon began to appear as an almost impossible feat, as his unit was only armed with Lee Enfield .303 caliber bolt-action rifles, which were of the World War II period, and although a very effective weapon, were a bit outdated by now compared to some of the automatic rifles that were being used by various armies around the world, and some light machine guns, namely the Bren gun and a few 2-inch mortars, whose effective range was just under 500 meters. Also, they had not been issued with any winter clothing, and each man only just had a few days of food rations. Singh realized that they wouldn't just be fighting the Chinese, but also the bitterly cold October weather and the harsh elements of the Himalayas. He knew he must make the best use of the local geography of the area and ordered his men to dig a defensive trench network on top of an elevated ridge. This meant that the enemy would have to make their way over open ground and then up a steep incline, all while his troops would have a tactical vantage point, ready to rain down fire on the approaching Chinese troops. Early in the morning on October 23, 1962, a Chinese division thought to be over 1,000 men strong moved into the nearby area. Not long after this, a smaller group of roughly 100 Chinese troops broke off from the main force and came across Singh's position. They immediately launched an attack up the slope, but were pushed back, taking heavy casualties as they did so. After the Indian position had been reported to the division headquarters, the Chinese made another attempt at attacking the defensive position and were again met with stiff resistance. During this skirmish, Singh himself took over the firing of a Bren gun and helped fight off the onslaught once more. But in the process, he was shot in the thigh and badly injured, and by now, half his force was
An ad right there. Are you kidding me? God, I already hate ads. They really should not be on the street videos at all.
dead or wounded.
Why
He
is the video
refused to be
keep going
evacuated from the field,
Oh,
continuing
sorry.
to inspire his men with his bravery and leadership skills. And he sent a message to his company commander over the radio, affirming that he and his men had decided to die fighting to the last man, defending their position. Although the Chinese had taken considerable losses themselves in an attempt to capture Singh's position, they didn't give up and mounted a third attack consisting of about 200 men. As this new wave of men surged forward, the Indian troops finally ran out of ammunition. So Singh, in a brave and desperate move, ordered his men to fix their bayonets to their rifles and prepare for what seemed like a suicidal charge into the wave of advancing soldiers. As the Sikh troops jumped out of their trenches and began charging down the slope towards the Chinese, they were shouting their war cry, "Jo bole so nihao, sat shri akal." The startled enemy was not expecting this and fell back in disarray. Singh and his men engaged the enemy in brutal hand-to-hand combat and began stabbing and slashing at them with their bayonets and inflicted many casualties among them. This was short-lived, however, as the Chinese forces quickly regrouped and launched a counterattack, and soon overwhelmed the few Indian survivors of the charge, who were exhausted and outnumbered after the intense combat.
Terrible.
Singh was captured and taken to a POW camp in Tibet, but his wound became infected and gangrenous, and despite having the leg amputated, he died shortly afterwards. He was 41 years of age and left behind a wife and 3 young children, a son and 2 daughters.
Oh.
Of Singh's unit, only a few survived the bloody battle, and that was because he had ordered them to run to headquarters to get more ammunition for the platoon, and they later testified to Singh's outstanding leadership and bravery on that day. In the village that Singh came from, as well as the surrounding Moga district of Punjab, he was hailed and celebrated as a hero of the people. The Indian Army went on to award him with their highest military honor, named the Paramvir Chakra Medal, an award given to those who have displayed distinguished acts of valor during conflict. When the Chinese authorities heard of this, as a mark of respect, they returned his cremated ashes to India.
Oh, wow.
Singh was only one of 41 Indian service personnel to be awarded this gallantry medal in its 70-year history. In later years, a memorial was erected in his home village, as well as a monument at the location of the battle, commemorating the event. As for the war, it continued for just under a month. China made significant territorial gains and captured and held all the areas it claimed belonged to them. The end of the conflict came on November 20th, when the Chinese government declared a ceasefire. In total, 1,383 Indian and 722 Chinese troops were killed during this conflict. Many died from their combat wounds due to the harsh and bitterly cold conditions endured up in the mountain range.
Wow, guys, that video was, it was shock. That was that guy. That guy was amazing. I mean, look at it. I mean, look what he did. That was awesome. That was. Anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.